Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this morning's ceremony. If I could ask you to stand for the arrival of our official guests, please. Commissioner Ian Stewart, APM, Commissioner, Queensland Police Service. Mrs. Sally Gregory, National Vice President, Queensland, representing the National President, Australian Bravery Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in welcoming our official guests. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated and we'll wait the arrival of His Excellency. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Would you please stand for the arrival of the Governor and Mrs. de Jersey, and please remain standing for the Vice-Regal salute. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Your Excellency, with your permission, I'll begin. His Excellency the Governor will present the following Australian Bravery decorations and awards. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Mr. Athan Khan Lontok Barnaby. On the afternoon of the 2nd of February 2016, Mr. Athan Barnaby rescued a man from a burning truck at Nerang, Queensland. Mr. Barnaby was travelling on the Gold Coast Highway when he witnessed a large truck swerve, slide into the guardrail and jackknife. The truck was tilted on its side, taking up 3 lanes of the highway with fire and smoke billowing from the engine area. Dressed only in light clothing and thongs, he left his own vehicle and ran towards a burning truck, just as the driver was trying to climb out of the cabin via a window. Due to his injuries and the smoke, the driver was unable to move any further. Mr. Barnaby climbed up onto the cabin to reach the semi-conscious driver, who was yelling in pain. He grabbed the driver by the arms and lifted him out of the window, freeing his injured legs. He then lowered the driver down across the front of the cabin to waiting bystanders, who moved him to safety. A short time later, the truck was engulfed in flames and exploded. By his actions, Mr. Barnaby displayed considerable bravery and is awarded the Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Senior Sergeant Nathan Malcolm Blaine, Sergeant Barry John Haran, Senior Constable David Murray. In the early hours of the 13th of September 2015, Senior Sergeant Nathan Blaine, Sergeant Barry Haran and Senior Constable David Murray were involved in the rescue of several people during a fire in a backpacker hostel at Airlie Beach, Queensland. Sergeant Haran and Senior Constable Murray were on patrol when they observed smoke coming from a hostel at Airlie Beach. They quickly investigated and found smoke and flames coming from the kitchen. They called for backup and Senior Sergeant Blaine arrived at the scene. The officers were advised that people were inside the building and warned of nearby gas cylinders and gas lines. Sergeant Haran and Senior Constable Murray went into the smoke-filled building and located 3 disorientated adults and led them out of the building. They were then informed that there was an elderly couple still unaccounted for. With smoke and flames visible inside the building and with breathing becoming increasingly difficult, Senior Sergeant Blaine, Sergeant Haran and Senior Constable Murray went inside but were unable to locate the elderly couple. Using clothing as face masks, the 3 officers re-entered the building and with the assistance of the manager were able to locate the couple, who they assisted outside. Once outside, Senior Sergeant Blaine, Sergeant Haran and Senior Constable Murray were informed that there were still people unaccounted for and they again entered the building but were forced to retreat due to the intensity of the smoke and zero visibility. The Queensland Fire and Rescue Service then arrived on the scene. By their actions, Senior Sergeant Blaine, Sergeant Horan and Senior Constable Murray displayed considerable bravery and are awarded the Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Mr Wade Trevor Capps, Mr Matthew Thomas Hull. In the late evening of the 7th of October 2015, Mr Wade Capps and Mr Matthew Hull provided assistance during an incident at a petrol station in Rockhampton, Queensland. A man walked into a petrol station at Berserker and proceeded to pick up a pump, activate the nozzle and pump petrol onto the driveway and around the Bowser. He then used a cigarette lighter to ignite the fuel coming from the nozzle and sprayed the lit fuel, lighting the fuel already on the ground. He began waving the nozzle around, stating that he wanted to kill himself. The service station attendant immediately activated the emergency shut-off valve and called 000. The fuel from the nozzle ceased flowing, however the man continued to attempt to reignite the nozzle. Other people at the station then moved towards the man, calling out for him to put the petrol hoses down, but he refused. Several people managed to remove the petrol hoses from the man and restrain him. At this point, Mr Hull drove into the petrol station, quickly parked his vehicle and went to assist with the offender. He grabbed hold of one of the man's arms and together with the others managed to move the offender to a safe area at the front of the store. Meanwhile, Mr Capps drove into the service station, saw the flames starting to climb up one of the Bowsers. Without concern for his own safety, he grabbed a fire extinguisher and used it to put the fire out. Meanwhile, Mr Hull and others continued to restrain the offender and then joined by Mr Capps, who stayed with them until the police arrived. By their actions, Mr Capps and Mr Hull displayed considerable bravery and are awarded the Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal and awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Senior Constable Stephen James Cook, Sergeant Gary Harold Hamray, Miss Stacey Lee Denman, Sergeant Gregory Burgess Sinclair. In the early hours of the morning of the 27th of September 2013, Sergeant Gary Hamray and Senior Constable Stephen Cook responded to an aggravated robbery incident in Arundel, Queensland, assisted by Sergeant Gregory Sinclair and involving Miss Stacey Denman. Queensland Police were alerted to an incident at a tavern where two armed offenders in possession of a shotgun and a machete entered a tavern in Arundel with the intention of robbing it. They detained 15 tavern patrons and employees, including Miss Denman. The offenders had removed all mobile phones, except for the one that Miss Denman had the presence of mind to hide in her apron pocket. She was able to discreetly make a call to police and kept the line open until it was safe to speak with the operator and provide details of the robbery that was taking place. After forcing the safe open and removing cash, the offenders decamped on foot into nearby bushland. Sergeant Hamray and Senior Constable Cook arrived at the scene and quickly began to conduct a search in the surrounding area. After a period of time, and with the assistance of a police dog, the offenders were located hiding behind a tree. The offenders then opened fire, seriously wounding Sergeant Hamray. Senior Constable Cook returned a number of shots towards the armed offenders and, using his weapon as cover, moved towards injured Sergeant Hamray. Sergeant Hamray was able to shine a torch in the direction of the offenders, and Senior Constable Cook quickly approached one of the men, successfully detaining him. Meanwhile, Sergeant Sinclair arrived on the scene, and despite not knowing the location of the offenders, he quickly approached and administered first aid to his seriously injured colleague, Sergeant Hamray. With the assistance of other police officers, both offenders were successfully detained and placed under arrest. By their actions, Senior Constable Cook, Sergeant Hamray displayed considerable bravery and awarded the Bravery Medal. For their actions, Miss Denman and Sergeant St Clair are awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Senior Constable Joseph Dominic Kelly. On the afternoon of the 21st of April 2013, Senior Constable Joseph Kelly rescued a person from a burning house in Rochdale South, Queensland. Senior Constable Kelly and two other officers responded to an incident at a property in Rochdale South. When they arrived, the fire alarm was sounding and they could smell smoke. They quickly began door knocking and calling out to alert any occupants. A woman came to the front screen door, however, refused to open it and returned inside. With the smell of smoke intensifying and flames apparent inside the home, Senior Constable Kelly was able to force open the screen door. He and his colleagues quickly entered the house, crawled along the floor to prevent smoke inhalation, and following the sound of the woman's voice, they located her at the rear of the house, which was alight, and Senior Constable Kelly and his colleagues were able to drag the unwilling female towards the front door and out onto the front porch. Senior Constable Kelly then entered the house for a second time in an attempt to locate and rescue any other occupants, but due to the hazardous conditions was forced to evacuate the house. He immediately went to the rear of the house to check if anyone else was still inside. Queensland Fire and Ambulance personnel then arrived on the scene. By his actions, Senior Constable Kelly displayed considerable bravery and is awarded a Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Dr. Peter Kirknezov. On the evening of the 29th of September 1983, Dr. Peter Kirknezov was involved in the rescue of a person from a capsized vessel near the port of Ballina, New South Wales. Dr. Kirknezov skippered his vessel with two passengers on board out through the Ballina Bar in order to escort two vessels into port on behalf of the Australian Volunteer Coast Guard. After observing that the two vessels were navigating safely towards the port, he began to turn his boat around when it was struck by a massive wave, causing it to capsize. Still inside the submerged wheelhouse, Dr. Kirknezov managed to escape out through the wheelhouse door. He was then able to pull himself from under the bulwark and swim to the surface. With the engine still operating and the boat still afloat, Dr. Kirknezov climbed aboard the upturned vessel and after a short period heard one of the passengers banging from inside. He slid off the bottom of the boat and dived into the dark water and made several unsuccessful attempts to dive beneath the boat and locate the trapped passengers. As he was preparing to dive again, one passenger managed to exit the vessel, and Dr. Kirknezov dragged him up onto the vessel's hull, from where they were later rescued. Sadly, the other passenger did not survive the incident. By his actions, Dr. Kirknezov displayed considerable bravery and is awarded a Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Mr. Joshua James Rogers. In the afternoon of the 5th of February 2016, Mr Joshua Rogers went to the assistance of a colleague during an incident with an armed offender in Maryborough, Queensland. Mr Rogers was working at the fast food restaurant in Maryborough when an unknown female entered the premises, walked past the front counter, made her way to the staff-only area and stood next to him at the bench. As he began to question her, the woman, who was very agitated, grabbed a knife off the counter and returned to the front of the shop. Mr Rogers immediately followed her as he heard one of his colleagues yelling. At this point, the armed female approached another staff member with the knife raised above her head. The staff member then grabbed the offender's hand and a struggle ensued. Mr Rogers came to his colleague's aid by seizing the offender's wrists whilst instructing her to drop the knife. He then forced the knife away from his colleague, causing the knife to fall to the ground. The offender then grabbed hold of another staff member's shirt collar and began assaulting her. The offender's partner then approached and grabbed her arms from behind. After several requests, the offender let go of the staff member's clothing and left the premises. By his actions, Mr Rogers displayed considerable bravery and is awarded a Bravery Medal. Awarded the Bravery Medal, Senior Constable Luke Graham Rowley. On the morning of the 31st of December 2013, Senior Constable Luke Rowley was involved in the rescue of 3 people at Carmilla Beach, Queensland. Senior Constable Rowley received notification of an incident taking place at Carmilla Beach. He immediately responded and arrived at the beach to see a distressed woman moving up and down the shoreline. He was informed that the woman's 2 children had been swept out to sea due to a strong current. The woman's partner had also entered the water to attempt their rescue. Seeing 2 figures approximately 50 metres from the shore, he entered the water and swam out to a young boy and a man. The man was breathless but explained that another child, a young girl, was further out at sea. The man and the boy were able to drag themselves back to the beach before the man collapsed. Senior Constable Rowley could not see the girl, so returned to shore, where he then spotted her approximately 200 metres out into the water. He ran to a nearby campsite, obtained a small float board before returning to the beach and re-entering the water. He swam out to the young girl, calling reassurance as he went. He reached her and, with her holding onto his neck, began making his return to shore. At this point, 2 fishermen arrived and Senior Constable Rowley and the young girl were pulled aboard their vessel and returned safely to the beach. By his actions, Senior Constable Rowley displayed considerable bravery and is awarded a Bravery Medal. Awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct, Senior Constable Benjamin James Brunel, Senior Constable Adam Isaac Peterson. In the evening of the 5th of January 2015, Senior Constable then Constable Benjamin Brunel and Senior Constable then Constable Adam Peterson assisted people trapped after an accident involving an LPG tanker at Ellis Beach, Queensland. Constable Brunel and Constable Peterson attended a traffic accident north of Ellis Beach. The officers were first on the scene, saw an LPG tanker had run off the highway and landed nose first in a waterway culvert. The tanker had landed upside down and was resting precariously on 2 rocks, and water was entering the crushed cabin. Constable Brunel and Constable Peterson climbed down the bank to the tanker. They saw 2 adults trapped within the cabin. The female passenger was unreachable. However, they were able to assist the male driver in keeping his head above the rising water. Constable Brunel and Constable Peterson attempted to release the trapped victims, but were unsuccessful. They continued to provide reassurance until emergency services arrived. Sadly, the female passenger did not survive the incident. For their actions, Senior Constable Brunel and Senior Constable Peterson are awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct, Mr Christopher Joseph Dennis, Mr Adam John Williams. On the afternoon of the 10th of October 2015, Mr Christopher Dennis and Mr Adam Williams were involved in the rescue of a boy who was swept into the sea at Fingal Head, New South Wales. A woman and 3 young children were playing in an area known as Echidna Rock at Fingal Headland. The children were 2 metres from the water line when a large wave crashed onto the headland and caused one of the children, a 9-year-old boy, to lose his footing, fall onto the rocks and into the water. The remaining 2 children also lost their balance but did not enter the water. The woman immediately jumped into the water and swam to the boy, and on reaching him, held his head above the water. Mr Dennis observed the woman's attempts to rescue the child. They appeared to be struggling as he quickly entered the surf and swam towards them. Upon reaching the distressed swimmers, he took hold of the child and began to swim away from the dangerous rocks. Mr Dennis, who still had hold of the boy, raised the alarm with nearby fishermen. He continued to manoeuvre through the strong currents and was eventually able to touch a sandbank where a police officer was able to assist. Mr Dennis then made his way back to shore. Mr Williams became aware of the situation and entered the water and swam to the woman, who was unconscious. Mr Williams was then joined by another swimmer on a surfboard. Despite the strong currents and several attempts, they managed to get the woman onto the surfboard and commenced CPR. Mr Williams and the man were making their way back to shore with the woman when a rescue boat arrived and took them back to shore. Sadly, the woman did not survive the incident. For their actions, Mr Dennis and Mr Williams are awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct, Mr Graham Gary Lawrence. Late in the evening of the 19th of November 1977, Mr Graham Lawrence, then Constable with Queensland Police, attended a residence in Brighton, Queensland, where gunshots were being fired. Constable Lawrence was informed of the situation and then moved to a property next door. As he was approximately 30 metres from the offender, he yelled out at him in an attempt to encourage conversation. Constable Lawrence then observed a colleague kneeling on a footpath across the road. As he approached his colleague, he was shot in the leg. He fell to the ground and self-administered first aid before sliding himself along the footpath as a car stopped on the opposite side of the street. Constable Lawrence warned the driver of the gunfire. However, the driver exited the vehicle and was also shot. The driver managed to get back in the car as Constable Lawrence made his way towards him. During this time, Constable Lawrence was again wounded and he took cover. Sometime later, 2 police officers came to his assistance. Unfortunately, the driver of the car did not survive the incident. For his actions, Mr Lawrence is awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct, Miss Caitlin Lily Relf. In the evening of the 1st of May 2015, Miss Caitlin Relf rescued her young sister from a submerged vehicle at Munrooban, Queensland. Heavy rain had been falling in the area for over a week, causing flash flooding. Caitlin, then 8 years old, was in the car with her mother, grandmother and 3-year-old sister, travelling on Green Hill Road in Munrooban. As the car was travelling downhill, it was hit by a wave of water, swept sideways and began floating in 8 to 10 metre deep water. Caitlin's mother and grandmother were able to exit the car, but were quickly carried away from the vehicle by the force of the water and managed to grab hold of a tree. Caitlin immediately undid her own seatbelt and moved to where her sister was secured in a baby seat. With the car sinking into the water, she managed to pull her sister from the seat straps. She then swam underwater and exited the vehicle, pulling her sister out behind her. Becoming fatigued, she pushed her sister to the surface, where the child was grabbed by her mother, who then also managed to get hold of Caitlin. Emergency services arrived at the scene and all four were rescued. For her actions, Ms Ralph is awarded the Commendation for Brave Conduct. Your Excellency, that concludes this morning's award conferral. Could I invite you now to address the recipients and their guests?
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, Kay and I are delighted to welcome you all to Government House today. May I extend a particular welcome to our most honoured guests, the recipients of the Australian Bravery decorations under the Australian Honours System, and to their proud families, friends and colleagues. The Australian Bravery decorations are our nation's preeminent awards for the recognition of acts of bravery. Their purpose is to recognise acts of bravery by people whose selfless actions in perilous situations amaze and inspire us. Government House is, in truth, the people's house, and it is on behalf of the people of Australia that we have gathered you together today to express our highest regard and sincere admiration and to honour you on behalf of your fellow Australians. We honour you in the name of everyone you sought to save, and we honour you in the name of their families and friends. We honour you for putting the lives of others before your own. And we honour you for living in that one moment the noblest aspect of the human spirit, to protect and care for each other, even when we are strangers to each other, even when to help is to place oneself in danger. I know that ceremonies like this one were the farthest thing from your minds in the terrible immediacy of those moments. I acknowledge that many of the incidents for which you are honoured today had a sad ending, and I hope that those who lost a loved one can take comfort in the extraordinary efforts made to save them. And I also know that many of you still feel the consequences of the event for which we are recognising you here today. Part of the purpose of this ceremony is to demonstrate directly to you the love and support of your community. It is also intended to celebrate the capacity of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And it is entirely to thank you for your selfless actions, which reaffirm our faith in each other and in the highest values of our wonderful community. Heroes do live among us, and they wear the Australian Bravery decorations. As Queensland's Governor, I have the prestige honour of speaking on behalf of all Queenslanders, and indeed I do so when I say Kay and I are truly enamoured of your actions. Hosting events like this one here at Fernberg is one of our most treasured public duties, and we look forward to offering you all some genuine Government House hospitality to accompany the very genuine and heartfelt admiration we feel for each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the Governor's departure? Your Excellency, could I invite you, Mr. Jersey, to retire momentarily while we organise recipients for a photo? Thank you.